I'm now going to read from today's Bible verse, which I'm going to put my glasses on to do this. We're going to read from 1 Corinthians 13, 4-8. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices in truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. But where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away.
Thanks, Joey, very much. So, as I said earlier, we begin a new series today. A new series called Love Never Fails, which is, as we've just seen, is the last statement in this description of what love is, the title of the song, which Ed sang just a few moments ago. This list of qualities of love which Paul cites. Some people say it's actually a portrait of who God is. This morning we're going to look at love is patient. I'm not sure how to tell you this, but when I said that to the staff team this week, they burst out laughing that it was me that was going to look at love is patient. Probably tells you all you need to know. Paul writes to this church in Corinth. Corinth is this place which has become significant just because of its geography, really. It's a case of location, location, location. And this church is there, and this church, well, they're pretty smug with themselves. And basically, they're having a row with Paul about what it is to be spiritual. They say, hey, Paul, we're speaking the language of heaven, old son. We hear from God about the future. We do all sorts of things. We got faith that moves mountains. We give loads of money to the poor. We are persecuted here. We know what it is to be spiritual. Paul, you just got it wrong. So Paul writes this letter to them and says, guys, all that is great. But if you haven't got love, you got zip, you got diddly, you got jack, you got nothing. Love is what counts. Love is, well, what is love? I'd like to give you fair warning, that might be a bit too late. There's going to be nudity in the next part of our sermon. Because when I was growing up, if you said love is, then this is the cartoon that would have come to mind, because our house was a Sun newspaper house. And in it there was a cartoon that says love is. And so love is a song in your heart. Love is what brings you to life. Love is sticking together. And you can take the slide down now, thanks, because that's far too much nudity for this time on a Sunday morning. A scientist went into a class of 5 and 6-year-olds and asked them the same question: what is love? And they came back with these responses. Love is when my grandmother's got arthritis and she can't bend over to paint her toenails anymore. Granddad does it for her. Love is when a girl puts on perfume and boy puts on shaving lotion, and then they go out and they smell each other. Love is what makes you smile when you're tired. Love is when my mummy makes coffee for my daddy and she takes a sip before giving it to him to make sure it's just right. Love is when you kiss all the time. Then when you get tired of kissing, you still want to be together and talk more. My mummy and daddy look gross when they kiss. Love is patient. That's the first statement. It'd be great if we lived in a perfect world, wouldn't it? A perfect world where cake was one of your 5 a day, where the M25 was free flowing. If Liverpool would win the quadruple, for those who aren't football fans, I'll explain later. Where your keys would stay where you put them, or at least you think you put them. That computers would do what you say, and maybe an extra nugget in your Happy Meal. But we don't live in a perfect world, do we? And life, well, let's be honest, it tests our patience. Earlier this week, I was on a way to see a friend, and I needed to give my friend some information. So I called someone on my hands-free whilst I was in the car, and it rang, and it stopped ringing, which meant that she had answered, but I couldn't hear her. I decided I'd need to redial again, and before I could do that, she dialed me, but my hands-free still wasn't working. And so I pushed the red phone again, and then I dialed her back, and I still couldn't get through, and my phone recommended that I retry again, and I found myself just seconds away from throwing my phone out of the car. Seriously. So let me ask you a question. Do you ever find yourself just seconds away from losing it, from losing your patience? Genesis says that we're from the dust. The word for that dust is Adama, from where we get the name Adam or Adam. We're fragile. We're from the dust. Life tests our patience. For me, I guess patience is tested with 4 eyes. Not 4 eyes as in 4 eyes, but 4 eyes. Interruptions is the first eye. We have an open door policy here at TBC, which means you can basically knock on anybody's door and go in, which is great until you're trying to prepare a sermon and someone comes and says, "Could I just have a minute?" And of course the answer's yes on the outside. Secondly, irritations. I came into work this morning and had a quick look round at reception because that's where I first come into the building. I just realised I've jumped a point. I apologise. Came in this morning and there is a biscuit wrapper on reception. All the biscuits are gone. Why couldn't the last person throw the wrapper away? Life is full of irritations. Inconvenience, to go back to that briefly. Later on today, I'm going to London to see my daughter, and I'm really looking forward to it. The last time I was in London and on the Tube network, which I love with a passion, I remember arriving on the platform and looking up and seeing that the next tube train was 4 minutes away. 4 minutes. Why isn't it there now? 4 minutes, 4 whole minutes. I've got to stand on this platform. Another eye tests our patience. And lastly, inactivity. Do you know what 4 milliseconds is? 4 milliseconds, if you live in South London, is the time it takes for the traffic lights to turn amber and then the guy behind you to honk because you haven't moved. Well, let me ask you a question. What sort of lift person are you? I mean, you push the button right and the numbers on the top of the dial, they don't go anywhere. So what do? Are you a button pusher? Do you keep pushing the button to see if that'll make the numbers move? Do you tut? Do you huff? Do you look at your watch? I used to work with a guy called Tim. Tim and I went to a friend's wedding. I followed him. He didn't know that I was following him as we went down the high street to the church. We needed to turn right into the church car park, and I just thought I would hurry him up a little bit because it would be fun. So when there was a micro gap in the traffic, I honked. Tim hadn't moved, so I honked again. At this point, Tim indicated to me why he hadn't moved. Apparently, he had a splinter in his middle finger, and he wanted me to see his splinter. I think that's what it meant. We live in a world that is frustrating. When was the last time that you yelled at a screen? Friends, we live in a world that's getting smaller and faster, and, well, we become more and more impatient. We live in that instant age, don't we? Instant coffee, instant information, instant custard, instant gravy, and all the other instants that meet our life. You download a file and it tells you it's going to be 2 minutes. Yeah, 2 minutes, and those minutes drag and drag and drag. And yet Paul says, love is patient. And patience is, well, it's kind of fundamental for life and for relationship. It's essential. Love is patient, says Paul. The word that Paul uses is this weird Greek word called macrothumia. Trust me, I'm a minister. That's what that word says, macrothumia. It breaks down into two bits, macro and thumia. Thumia is the big, fat, sort of O with a line through it in the middle of the word. Macrothumia. Macro just simply means long or slow. And thumia, well, you can probably hear the word heat in there, or wrath, or energy, or anger. Macrothumia, when Paul was writing to this bunch in Corinth, basically meant, guys, you need to express love in a way that means it takes a long time for you to boil. You've got to have a long and not a short fuse. But Dave, people are so annoying. Yeah, I know. It's another I. Individuals, because why do they do that? Why don't they understand that? Why am I having to repeat myself all the time? What I'm saying makes perfect sense. I'm clear. I'm logical. I'm justified. I am making sense. They are confused, irrational. What they're saying is unwarranted. The lights are on, but no one's at home. Sound familiar? Love is patient. Friends, everyone is different. Different backgrounds, different passions, strengths, weaknesses, hopes, dreams, different personalities. I'm on this course at the moment. It's great with a bunch of guys, a bunch of ministers. We've just done, again, Myers-Briggs, which is this piece of science which tells you there are 16 personality types. What can I tell you? People are different to you. Some people, believe it or not, are morning people. Yeah, people actually enjoy early mornings. Strange, huh? Some people are prompt, which means they arrive for the meeting 2 minutes before it starts, as you're meant to. And then other people arrive 10 minutes late and think that's perfectly acceptable. Everyone is different. Some people like to be spontaneous, others need a detailed plan. It's easy to be misunderstood, to get tripped up by language. Did you know that the 500 most commonly used words in the English language have 14,000 different meanings? I mean, we got no chance, have we? And don't get me started on motives. It is impossible. Don't go there. You will never or rarely figure out people's motivation. I want to be honest with you. There are sometimes I do things and I haven't got a clue why I do them the way that I do them. And so trying to figure out what other people's motivation is, it's just a waste of time. Love is patient. Paul says to this little church in Corinth, guys, you might be able to do all the stuff that you see as spiritual. But if you don't develop patience, if love doesn't shout louder than your impatience, then you're nothing. You're a clanging cymbal. You're a waste of time. Develop patience, macrothumia. Take a long time to boil. Be long-suffering. Have a long fuse. Why? Well, God is patient. He's been patient with you. Be patient because God calls you to be patient. Be patient because others need you to be patient with them if they are going to be the best version of themselves. Love is patient. When Jesus made his statement on what love was, he simply said this: love God, love others, and love yourself. Love God by mimicking him. Be patient. Love others. Cut people some slack. Everybody has a bad day. And be patient with yourself. Give yourself a break. Understand you're always finite. It's the summer. So I want to be really practical as we head into the summer. So how do you develop patience? Here's a few ideas. Number one, accept that you have limits: physical, emotional, mental, financial, time-wise. Guys, remember, we're all from the dust. Accept you have limits. Secondly, you can't do everything. You can't do everything. You need to simplify things. How would it be this week if you went through your diary and asked the hard question of, do I really need to do that? Associated with that, create some space. Book in some space, some me time. Remember that you are a human being, not a human doing. Next, allow for the unexpected. I was 6 minutes late leaving this week for a funeral. 6 minutes. Just 6 minutes. I'd allowed myself 45 minutes to get to the crematorium in Tonbridge, Wales, or 39 by the time I'd left. I got to the Ridgeway and the traffic was back to, halfway up it. I turned round. I sprinted across country. I came in the back way and I got really close to the crematorium, and I'm waiting behind a van and waiting for the van to get out of my way because I need to get to the funeral. I'm taking the funeral. Does nobody understand? And ahead of the van, the hearse and the other funeral cars pass by. I should be there ahead of them. My friend, if you were driving that van and if you heard the person behind you shouting, "Forgive me, forgive me." Give yourself some wiggle room. Allow for the unexpected. Give others a break. As I've said a moment ago, we all have bad days. We all make bad decisions. None of us are immune to mistakes. And lastly, take the long view. Take the long view. I've got a friend of mine, I won't tell you his name, I don't want to embarrass him, but he is one of the patient people in my life. I want to be more like him. In chatting to him, he said this: "Dave, you need to understand that in life, this imperfect world in which we do life, recognizing that we are fragile, we are people of the dust, that if you feel strongly about something and you feel you ought to control it, then do your best, get involved, but you will find situations that you cannot control, and you need to accept that. You need to take the long view. So in those situations where you can't control it, try and influence it if you think you can. But Dave, we live in a broken world, and there will be those situations where you just cannot influence the outcome. And in those situations, you've got to take the long view and just let them go. Love is patient. I pray that you may have a summer which is soaked in patience, that you may be the recipient of much patience. And may you enjoy much patience and give much patience. My dear friends, may you be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him. Do not fret when people succeed in their ways, when they carry out their wicked schemes. May you be joyful, patient in affliction during those tough times. May you be faithful in prayer. May you be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another in love. And may you, being rooted and established in love, together with all the Lord's holy people, grasp how wide, how long, how high and deep is the love of Christ, and to know this love that surpasses knowledge, that you may be filled to the measure of all fullness of God. May you, this summer, have an opportunity to be patient.